One. Welcome back to another edition of the Diabetes Remission Roadmap podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Cory Jankson. Brian, with me as always, smiling, wiping food off his face, just raring and ready to go. Showed up ready to play today. And speaking of ready to play, we recorded this in April of 2026. It's Little League season, baby. I know Brian's in the thick of it as a coach. I'm coaching one team, I'm assisting another team. And I actually had something come up the other day that I think is going to be relevant for today's topic. And so I'm at the level where the kids start pitching, and I had a kid
Ooh.
on my team that you look at him objectively, big kid, should be able to throw it really well, and was just kind of struggling. And so I was giving my perspective on how to help him throw the ball better. And then yesterday we had practice, and I've been working with our pitchers. I was a pitcher in high school. I had one of the other coaches who's very knowledgeable. I said, "You go talk to the pitchers." This same kid who had been struggling was walking away from his little bullpen session, and the coach just like clapping his hands, being like, "You got it, man, you got it." And something that coach saw and was able to relate to that player clicked with that player, and he was throwing the ball way better. And
Mm.
it reminded me that you can have a really good coach, but if that coach doesn't connect with you or can't solve the problem in a way that fits your life, well, they're not going to be really helpful. And whether it's a coach, a doctor, a nurse, this is a diabetes podcast. Wherever you're interacting in that healthcare system, sometimes having that other perspective is useful.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a great example to bring up pitching. I mean, I too pitched. I didn't make it as far as high school. I think I threw out my arm in grade school just because I was stubborn and I pitched through a lot of pain. And as I know now, my form was way off because Cory has since taught me how to correct my pitching form. So thank you, Cory.
Yeah, we
Uh,
also, if you're looking for a youth pitching consult too, just reach out to me directly. Ignore Brian on
yeah,
that
I
one.
can't do
So
it.
he's not your guy for that.
No, but this is a great point because I think so often we talk about this like, and there I am saying like Cory's going to try to cut this out. I'm trying to be more aware of this. He's coaching me on this. He's a professional speaker. I'm not. I need to remind myself of that. But I am reminded of all the time when people are like, I just want to be seen and heard by my provider, but they just don't seem to listen to me. And maybe we're not connecting. We're not on the same level. And I have a big example of this. I just recently had to go to the doctor for like an annual checkup and had a little concern to get addressed. I might not have to get into that details, but anyway, all that aside, essentially, I did not feel heard in that moment, and it was really, really frustrating to me to have expressed my concern, have my provider immediately dismiss it, not even acknowledge it, and just be like, "No, this is the way we're gonna do it." And I said, "Okay, all right." And so being a little, I still did my own thing a little bit. I eventually followed the instructions. Anyways, I'm getting a little off tangent here, but long story short, it is nice to be felt like you are heard and seen and listened to. And sometimes it works really well when you have a couple different coaching styles like Cory and I bring to the table. We were talking about this on the phone the other day, how, well, I was telling him, or he was telling me how much he's enjoyed making the YouTube video that he just dropped and
Which, by the way,
implementing.
go check out our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It'll probably be me mostly doing videos every Monday. So, in addition to our Wednesday podcast, you'll be getting a little bit more mid-form content from YouTube. But yes, I've
Yeah.
really been enjoying that process of being an educator and teaching something about I've always enjoyed ever since I was a pharmacist teaching students, residents, patients, etc. Continue, Brian. We were on the phone talking.
Yeah, you were mentioning how you really like to reframe this idea in your mind, like I'm an educator. That's what I'm doing. And I said, hold on a second. I think we're change makers. And you said, well, I like being an educator more. I said, well, I like being a change maker more. So I think that really makes a nice 1-2 combination punch where Cory can be the educator and I can be the change maker, really drill home the change and look at the psychology, behavior changes behind the things necessary to put what we talk about into practice. Because I even heard listeners email us in and be like, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it. And that's why sometimes it just takes having someone on your team, a guide, to actually follow through because there's a lot more that goes into it, Cory, right?
Yeah, and let me step back. And so, how, if you're listening and you want to reverse your type 2 diabetes, improve your blood sugar, get off medicines, what does what we're talking about have to do with anything? Well, I think the first thing I really want to stick a fork in, go deeper on, is that you need to be working with someone that is listening to you, understands your concerns, your wants, And also understand that if you're working with somebody, because we work with a lot of clients who are working with a doctor and working with some really great doctors. I mean, the number of times I've heard praise for our clients' doctors is I've lost count. And I think that's great. However, if you're working with somebody and you're not getting the results you want, it could mean that they are not giving you the right information, they don't have the right information, or they struggle with communicating the right information. And so if you need to find someone to complement that, that to me is that whole idea of getting that second opinion. Like I had to get the second opinion from our other pitching coach the other day to break through to the player that just my communication style and him, we didn't match. And so just because you're working with someone whom isn't getting through to you doesn't mean that they're not an expert or they don't have expertise. It just might not mean that they are the right learning style for you or communication style. Now with Ryan and I think it's really funny because yeah, he mentioned like I like the idea of being a change maker, and I just made a face. He couldn't see it because we're on the phone. Like I don't really want to be thought of as a change maker. I like educating, and through that education, change can happen. But I think with the two of us, what you want to look out for with getting that second opinion is when you get a second opinion that's diametrically opposed to that first opinion, then you are confused. You're like, wait, wait a minute, what the heck? Like this person says to do nothing but cardio. This person says never do cardio. What am I supposed to do? We often shut down and give up. I think Brian and we're going to toot our own horn a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about our teaching and coaching styles is we have a shared vision. We have a shared roadmap. And the way I go about coaching and teaching is a little bit different than the way Brian does, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll share an example because I was on the phone with the client the other day, and she was mentioning how she's got a lot of dietary restrictions, and she's getting a little burnt out on some of the food choices, and how she's talked to nutritionists and she's met with them, but nothing has really been, quote, that game changer for her. And instead of me making more suggestions at that time of just something else to try, I said, well, what would it take for it to be a game changer? And it was just like a deep question, open-ended question. So I think that's where the coaching really comes into place is I was taught into the philosophy of like, I don't have the answers like the client does. Like inherently they know the answer. And so it's just my job to help unveil and release that answer. And so that's always the mindset and approach I'm taking when I'm in a conversation with someone is like, I'm not, again, we talked about, we were taught like, hey, you're not the sage on the stage waving the finger. Essentially, like my doctor, I felt like he was, to me, he was like, I'm up on this stage and I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it. We would rather be like the guides on your side, walking you through, walking you across this journey, this bridge toward remission. And so that's again, Cory, the philosophy that I was taught is like they have the answer in them. It's your job to extract it, to ask those questions, reflect something back to them that in the words they just used and see what comes up of it.
And that's why I love talking to you, Brian, is because every time I talk to you, you say something that teaches me. And the idea that the person in front of you has all the answers. And that's something I'm a trained improv comedian. And what we do is we simply listen and respond. Yes. And something that I mean, I wrote a book called Permission to Care, Building a Healthcare Culture That Thrives in Chaos. And one of the, yeah, I know, I like to drop the fact that I'm board certified and I have written 2 books, Brian. That's my style, is to make fun of Brian. But the reality is the answers do lie with that person right in front of you, that human being, the client, the patient. Brian hates the word patient, but when I was practicing as a pharmacist, that's just my default. My apologies. This is where we're a little opposed, folks, but we're still here on your side. And so the truth is, yes, the answer lies within that person in front of you and the ability to extract that answer from them by asking the right questions. And Brian's a great question asker. And I think that for me, my strength lies in little tactical victories, fitting the changes into your life. And so I think I really enjoy creating the, solving for the puzzle of I'm traveling, I struggle with X, Y, and Z, and I like coming up with 1, 2, and 3. And admittedly, for someone who has done basically theater, I'm still pretty left brain. Pharmacy attracts a certain type. And so I think what Brian and we complement each other is we have the same idea of a roadmap. And when you work with us, you're getting both of us, and you're getting Brian's like philosophical, big question view of the world. And I feel like and Brian can back me up on this, I'm a little bit more tactical. Yes, I still listen. I still try to get you, the person in front of me, to come up with that answer. But I do like solving for those little quick puzzles and wins too, and diving a little bit deeper into that, and then educating as well. So that's, I think, why I think healthcare should be a team sport. And then maybe that's the theme of this episode, is that getting the right team behind you, you're going to have the right philosophy. Just like a little league team is full of a bunch of coaches who have the same goals to help their kids get better, but they might have a little different philosophy on pitching or hitting or how to play the game. But if you can have a civil discussion, listen, make others feel seen, heard, and understood, then you're going to have more success.
Yeah. The philosophy followed by execution, because it has to be executed. Can't just be taught. So that's why I like the idea of change maker too. But I totally get the educator, that you enjoy kind of identifying with being the educator, because that part is really important. And I'll just a little drop here. Like the YouTube video you did was great. I could not replicate that because that's not my wheelhouse. Again, not the professional speaker here. Cory's the book writer, professional speaker, and it definitely shines. And that's why I love giving Cory the spotlight on the podcast too. I just like to sit back and watch him work and be a little bit of a whatever. He make fun of me, and that's fine. I'm used to it. I like it.
No, we've got a lot of feedback on how much people enjoy when they make fun of you. So
I laugh at it myself,
we have to,
honestly.
We have to like play to the downloads, honestly. So we got to juice the algorithm. No, but here's the thing. I think we can also, with our own style, trip ourselves up. And so for me, I think that if you're listening out there, and like Brian says, we'll get emails and messages from folks who say, hey, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it. And for as much education and tactical stuff that I like to do for my left brain, I tend to be an overthinker. And so if you're like me, you love listening to every podcast, read every book, read all the research, and then you'll still feel stuck. You won't take action because you're still waiting for all the stars to align. And you're just not going to get that perfect clarity. Instead, I think Brian's philosophy would be, don't wait for perfect clarity, start taking imperfect action. And I think that's where we're with you and me is, I like, even when we're working on a project or a post, I like to be super sure about stuff. And you're more of a, it's good, Cory, just make the edit, trust yourself.
Yeah. Make the change, trust, learn. That's why I then teach people, hey, curiosity over criticism. If you tried it, didn't work, don't beat yourself up. Talked to someone about eating a whole chocolate bar the other day. It was Easter time, and they eat the whole chocolate. It's like, if you eat a whole chocolate bar, great. Don't beat yourself up. Just learn from it. Yeah, it's okay to make those mistakes.
And at the same time, if you just do stuff without any direction, you're not going to get the results either. And so I think that's where having some clarity, having a good direction is so important. And so I think results happen, your blood sugar improves, you improve your health when the right actions meet the right understanding. And so sometimes people who think like me word vomit understanding so much that people can't take action. And Brian, I think your philosophy that has rubbed off on me is, let's get some understanding, but let's find ways to take little actions and draw that out from within you.
Yeah. And that reminds me of just how we break things down. So in terms of educating, you always like to we always start with the why. Why is this important? How do you do it? What do you do? And what do you do now? So if there's ever something we're teaching, we start with that why, and then you end with the now. What's the thing you can do right now? Because again, knowledge without power is just potential. Knowledge without action is potential power. So it's that whole idea of putting knowledge into action that gives you the power to then be on that road to remission.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
Yeah. So as the teacher, I like teaching mechanisms. And with coaching, it's taking those mechanisms and actually doing it, because you need to know what and why something matters, but then actually do it and take action. And so I think we've seen countless people in our careers as pharmacists who seem to know everything. They read every book, but they just keep waiting to take action, or they keep having roadblocks that come up in life that get in the way of taking that action theoretically. And every time that I listen to Brian talk to a client, to a patient, to me, to myself, he is so good. And I'm going to brag on you. You bragged on me for writing books and being good on this. You're so good at asking very thoughtful questions. And so you're going to draw more thoughtful answers that are going to drive action. And whether someone works with us or a doctor or a nurse or another health coach or their mom, whatever it is, I think a good guide is going to ask those difficult, thought-provoking questions with the background of why are we even doing this?
Yeah. Questions are the answer, Corey. That's my philosophy too. Questions are the answer.
Ooh.
So,
Oh my gosh. Questions are the answer. See, the hard part for me as an improviser. So if you can believe, so a little improv comedy background. In improv comedy scenes, the worst thing you can do is ask a question because you are literally putting all of the work on the other person. So as we're going back and forth here, if I just said, Brian, what are your thoughts on asking questions? Now you have to come up with an entire theory on asking questions. But if I say, Brian, I think asking questions is stupid, you now have a strong opinion to bounce that back against, right? Does that make
okay,
sense? I'm giving you,
true.
yeah.
But you can give context in the questions. I think the ultimate question asker, and almost this goes too far, is if you've ever listened to the
Oh,
Freakonomics
no,
episodes.
no, what I'm trying to say is that my training is one where I don't ask a lot of questions in random
Oh, okay.
conversations. And I'm trying to get over that. I'm giving you praise. I'm saying
Oh,
questions in this
okay. Thank
context
you.
is good.
Yes,
So
questions are good.
questions in trying to do a back and forth podcast are less effective with you and I because then it just puts the onus on the other person. But when we're trying to draw an answer out of someone who's trying to find a path to better health, asking those difficult questions are thought provoking. You can take the time and come up with that answer that you're looking for. So
Yeah, and well, I'll say this, it's so empowering when someone gives you and creates that space to they actually ask you a question, and they're not assuming that they know everything about you and that they know the best thing for you, whereas they're like, again, putting the ball in your court and saying, hey, well, what do you think would be the best answer? What does this even mean to you? And then they're like, I'm not afraid to give feedback once I have better context and understanding of what's going on for them. So it's not like I'll just say, hey, well, you just figure it out on your own. I am definitely still giving people that guidance and recommendation once I have a better understanding of what's going on. So
yeah. So if you're listening to this and this resonates, just remember as you build your team, because it does take a team to lower your blood sugar, go on the path to remission. You want to have a team behind you, and that team could be your spouse, your household, your friends that support you out in the real world. It could be your doctor, a nurse, an educator, a coach, whatever it is. Make sure that your team is supporting you, asking the right questions, holding you accountable, so you can better yourself. Because I think that oftentimes people don't need more information. They just need better direction in which way to go to take that action. And so if you're looking for more information, more ways to take action, you're already listening to the podcast. Do us a favor. We haven't asked in a while, but if you can give us a like, make sure you subscribe, write a review, share it with someone who needs to hear this. We love hearing the stories of people improving their lives. It's what drives us every day. As Brian had alluded to, we're more active on YouTube now, so we're putting shorts of the episode up on YouTube, so you can check that out and check for some mid-form content every Monday. So you're going to have two juicier pieces of content every week. You're going to get a YouTube video and you're going to get the podcast. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube to make sure you don't miss anything. But in the meantime, Brian, any final words of wisdom before we get out of here?
I got nothing, man.
Yeah.
I think that was a good conversation, and it was, again, it just stemmed from us having a conversation on the phone. So I think it was a good way to summarize how our different coaching styles really support people in general, and how you mentioned people need a team. I totally agree with that. Although I will caution people in saying, be careful on being your spouse's accountability partner.
Yeah.
That's a blowback.
It's not so much
gone.
accountability as can they just not be sabotaging you, I guess is where I'm going with that. You don't need your spouse to be your accountability partner. Just don't have them bringing fresh baked chocolate chip cookies into the house every day. Yeah. I've seen it happen too many times. So let us know which style you like more. This is a contest, Brian. Send us a message, send us an email, say, hey, I really like Brian's style. I think Cory's hilarious. He needs to make fun of Brian more. We'll listen to all that feedback and incorporate it. And make sure too, if you have a question about your blood sugar, about diabetes, send it to us so that we can address it on a FAQ Rapid Fire Friday episode. So until then, keep it simple and do what works.